is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome into another edition of Booth Review. I'm Nick Springer filling in for Kent Swanson this week. And as always, we have a very, very exciting show ahead of us. We have a very special guest. And I'm with Brandon McAnderson here. And BMAC, I'm going to let you introduce our guest and take it away here.
We are joined by Super Bowl champion, current NFL veteran, all-pro, ultimate underdog, no longer an underdog, Chris Harris Jr. Thanks for joining us, man.
Oh, yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for having me.
So it's an exciting season, man. You know, this is a week to week. There's some new plateau that this team reaches. Just describe from your perspective, what things have you been super interested in following and what kind of things have stuck out to you have you followed this season?
Yeah, man, just seeing how the guys believe they can win every game. You know, I think that was it was enthusiasm, you know, a spirit that was gone, you know, that where it was a point where we didn't believe that we can win a game. Right, we knew walking in this stadium, this was going to be a loss, right? But now we feel like we can beat anybody, right? I when I see those guys warming up and then seeing those guys get ready every week, and coach is coming up with a game plan to win every game.
Yes,
right. You know, so I think that gives those guys confidence. I see the change right there, and that's the biggest improvement I've seen.
Now, from an offensive perspective, you know, Kotal Nicki, the offensive coordinator, is constantly talking about being the most stressful offense in the country. Give us a defender's perspective. If you were facing this offense, describe some of the reasons that it's stressful to defend all the different things that this Kansas offense can do.
Well, I think first it starts with the run game. You know, his run scheme and the way he gets them out in space, misdirection, quarterback option, quarterback read, you know, quarterback design run, you know. So he has so many different aspects in his run game that makes it – that's tough right there out the gate.
Right.
Right? Going up against a team. And then on top of that, we have a solid O-line, right? And now you give us two dynamic running backs, right? So that's even a bigger problem right there. So the guys, I think he's done an excellent job. You know, probably our best OC since Coach Warner. And, you know, it's a different style than Coach Warner. Coach Warner is more spread, you know, and this guy is more design run, man. So I'm loving it, and it's tough, man. It's tough every week.
Yeah, describe, just give us a perspective because, you know, this Kansas defense, one of their bugaboos has been the RPO. And then if you look around the league, every quarterback-friendly system in the league is an RPO system. So just describe, how difficult it is when you're out there on that island and still having to worry about your run fits and run responsibilities, but a guy just going to run right by you, run a post, whatever the case may be. Just describe some of the complications that RPO gives you.
Yeah, it's just really it's about studying and game planning, understanding what formations they love to run the RPOs. And I never really had a problem in the league with RPOs like that because I understood the formations. I understood if I have the running back to me and he's wide split, you likely get RPOs from that. So I always try to kind of sink inside a little bit, try to play the slant. And if guys can prepare and understand, you get certain formations on the RPO, right? And they usually catch you, you know, Lamar Jackson, them will catch you slipping, right? And that's when they get those big gains. So guys just got to be able to study. Now it's been out long enough now to where we're kind of slow catching up to it now,
right?
You know, but the quarterback run game is just making it tough on everybody, college and in the NFL.
Yeah, you know, they're playing that numbers game, and now you're seeing these people try to, specifically last week, Iowa State has that super interesting 3-3-5 where they're playing a linebacker basically from safety depth. And to that kid's credit, he was good at it. And they made it hard for the Kansas offense. But I just think about the ways that these box numbers, you know, have reduced. So now it's a matter of how are we going to match this? You throw the quarterback in there. Now the numbers are out of favor. It just gets tough. So let's go back to Ames. Just as, you know, Kansas has this road opportunity after a huge win. You know, traditionally under this short distance for the light bulb regime, they've not been good after big wins. This game, they come out and they answer the bell to start the game, and then they answer the bell over and over and over, specifically on defense. Any performances that you want to highlight that you remember that kind of helped Kansas solidify a great defensive performance on the road?
I mean, of course, Melo coming back with a back-to-back pick sixes. That's huge. Logan was all over the field. I think he had great tackles. Only knock on me, I would say, is he misses a couple. So that's the only thing I would say. But that's something that he can definitely improve. But I think the defense as a whole plays solid. It's always tough going to Ames. People don't understand. It's hard playing there. Right? It's not easy playing there and getting a win there. Right? So to see that team go mentally, they could have really, took on the hype after beating OU. Right? And really not put their work in, not study. But that was that really showed us that we really took the next step in the program, right? To really beat an OU team and then go on the road to beat a tough Iowa State team, right? That's a major jump. So if I'm these guys, I would be confident to try to go win out the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I kind of think about going back to our Orange Bowl year. I know you were super young, so I know you were just like, man, let's just keep it going, let's keep fighting. But there were moments where our experience had been much different than that. We had blown those type of games, at Iowa State. We'd not been able to close those and finish them. And then once we got over that hump in Manhattan, it just felt different. Like we beat a good team. We beat a good K-State team in Manhattan. And it was like, well, we could do this every week. We kind of felt like we could anyway. But just describe how you felt in those moments and what it was like for you as a player, and hopefully how these things kind of transpire for this group going forward.
Yeah. Like you said, man, when you never know how good you are until you go on the road and you face a tough team. And that I remember Orange Bowl year, we didn't really know until we had to go on the road and see K-State. Jordy Nelson, Josh Freeman. They had a long list of guys. So I think going out there, giving that win, that gave us a lot of confidence. I think us beating OU, that was a huge game. And it was kind of like 2 seasons in one for KU this year. It was so much hype for Jalen. Right. And then he just hadn't been able to stay healthy. And then now we had to kind of reconstruct the offense, the system a little bit to fit me. Right. And they both can scramble, but they're 2 different type of quarterbacks.
For sure.
Right. So now you got to tip your hat to the OC, being able to maximize Jason Beam, being able to still, him go out there and be productive, making plays, and being able to get some big wins, man. So that's nobody expected him to be playing this much, right? I expect him to probably play a little bit, but seeing Daniels not play at all this year, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with him next year.
Absolutely, and Jason's been incredible. Is one of the things I think people miss on Jason is that he was wanting to move on because he wanted to prepare for a pro career. He wanted to show that he could play another position and use that speed to do something else. I think it's been incredibly unselfish to come back to the team and play quarterback, knowing that might not be the position that he's qualifying for at the next level. And you've been there and what kind of dedication that takes. What does that say about Jason and his commitment to the program and the team?
Oh, man. I mean, who's to say that he doesn't get a shot at quarterback?
Right.
You never know.
The way he's playing right now.
Right. I don't know why he would count himself out like that. I think, the quarterbacks in the NFL, you can see this is probably the most years we had backups, right? So the backups it's wide open, man. So if you continue to improve, and get better and better as the season ends, and then have good senior bowls, whatever, and then a solid pro day. You never know. If I'm him at pro day, I'm running receiver routes and throwing the ball. So so gotta do whatever I can, to try to get some type of shot. But I think the way he's playing, man, he definitely deserves it. Some teams pick up 4-3 quarterbacks, so it wouldn't hurt to go definitely give him a look.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, he's number 20 in the country in QBR. He's number 3 in the Big 12. His numbers are awesome. His touchdown to interception ratio is awesome. And my favorite thing about him is he gets better every week. And a guy that's in his 6th year, that's unique. Guys that are older in their career aren't usually improving skill by skill. I think that's been my favorite part of him. Now, I want to throw back to the Orange Bowl year. You mentioned Melo with back-to-back pick sixes. He's kind of been in the position that you were in early in your career where everybody was staying away from a key and you were getting a ton of reps and getting better rapidly. Just describe what that was like for you and how some of the similarities you've seen in Melo's growth.
Oh, yeah, definitely, man. I think he's definitely at a different standpoint than where I was, being a freshman, wet behind the ears, just coming right in, starting opposite of All-American, right? That's totally different, So it was a lot of pressure. It was definitely a lot of pressure and, wanted to be a strong point to the team. Didn't want to be a weak link, and wanted to be able to go out there and make plays. So that was just always my goal, is doing whatever I could to contribute. And, man, Gino used to and Coach Young used to be like, hey, just go out there and play hard, play your game. And, we know you're going to play tough. And those guys really gave me a lot of confidence early in my career at KU. So, but with Melo, man, I think he's definitely improved. He has great size, long corner. Same thing with Kobe. So these two guys, I think, definitely have great potential to play in the league. When you find DBs that can get the ball, right, and also not only get the ball, go score, right, and then they haven't been a weak link in tackling, right? They've been great tacklers. So I think those two guys definitely have a great shot. They proved it every week. So as long as they continue to play tough this year, man, hopefully we should have 2 all Big 12 corners. Kobe should have a chance to get All-American. I don't know what his numbers is compared to all the top DBs in the nation. But Big 12, I mean, who's better than Kobe right now in the Big 12? I don't know. So I haven't seen anybody. Yeah, so I think he definitely, you kind of got to pub them for these things, right? We got to, market these guys and kind of get it out there, push for them to get All-American, because they're having those type of years, right? So I think that's our job as, fans, former players, KU alum, coaches, the whole school, being able to make sure these guys get the rightful recognition that they deserve.
Now, I want to touch on one more DB, and this is just as a personal fan. I love O.J. Burroughs. I love the anticipation he plays with. He's a short tackler, like you mentioned, and he's a smaller guy. Like, you're not used to seeing 5'10", 180-pound safeties that come up and make plays the way he does. What's your evaluation of O.J. and the ceiling of a guy that's performing as well as he is right now?
Yeah. Oh, man, I think he's playing solid too, man. Being able to we got a lot of good depth. I think secondary-wise, they've done a great job of being able to get solid recruits and be able to continue to get depth. Somebody goes down. We've had solid replacements, whether it's Lassiter, I think that's his name, is that number 8? Yeah, I mean, he's solid, So, secondary, I've been much impressed with them. I think as long as they could just continue to improve, we have a couple bonehead mistakes here and there, but I think as the season goes, man, I think we should. I don't know what they rank right now, but we should be in the top 10 in the nation. Especially with the way that we've been playing the last probably month.
For sure, yeah. There's been big improvements across the board. Now I'm going to give you a fantasy scenario. You come back, freshman Chris Harris. We know at Bixby, Oklahoma, we know what you were with the ball in your hand. So we weren't just a DB. We know what you were on the hoops court. We know that athletic transfer. If you could choose right now, would you play offense for this team or would you play defense? Give me some background on why and what you would choose.
Oh man, I would probably, just to have fun, man, I'd probably try to play free safety, man. Let Kenny do the dirty work, just chill and let Melo and Kobe do their thing, and they just go follow the ball, man. So I think that would be fun, definitely, to go back in time and play with these guys, man. So, and just seeing them, man, being around them, going in the locker room, and man, these guys want it. These guys are hungry, and they got a taste of some, victory now. So now it's, that's the standard now. So I'm liking where we're at.
Yeah, I could see you patrolling the middle of the field. That wouldn't be so bad. Coming up with some picks. You want to pick somebody. Here comes Chris Harris right through that gap, taking care of that pick, getting into the house like a couple guys have this season. I think we've got, I believe, at least 3 touchdowns on defense, maybe more. So that you always 4. Yeah, Nick Springer, 4.
Melo has 2. Kobe has 1. I think Logan. That's come on.
Yeah.
4 touchdowns out of your secondary. Right? They're on some no-fly zone. This is what we were doing. Like, they're on some, different how many teams in the nation have this many touchdowns? I don't know. We got to get the stats on this. Yeah. But
so
we're up there.
KU's tied for first with 4 with 6 other schools. So
okay.
They're at the top. They're at the top.
We're at the top, man. Yeah. So we're seeing, man, they're playing elite football. And I love the D coordinator too. Right? We get a lot of, pub to the offensive guy, but the D coordinator, they're solid. They have a tight game plan every week. They don't do too much, right? He's not exotic, but they all know what to do, right? Yeah. When you can keep it simple and guys can play fast, that works, right? And you see a lot of teams, they do a lot of exotic things, a lot of blitzes, a lot of different things. Yeah. But KU, man, we just play solid football. We don't really – teams know where we're going to be in, right? It's not a disguise, but these guys are able to play this game correctly and play it tight every week. So that's what I'm noticing from watching the guy. And I love both the OCs. I think they're doing great.
Absolutely. I love the defense coordinator. I thought the Iowa State game was the most rhythm that they had in terms of play calling. He's not exotic, but when you get him in 3rd and long, he's got some stuff. He had some stuff he was throwing out. I liked his edge blitzes. He brought guys off the edge that were in the slot. He's a guy that's getting the rhythm. And sometimes on defense, you don't get the amount of credit for your creativity and your execution. But as you mentioned, he definitely deserves all the credit for the game plan he put up against Ames. And I'm looking to see if this run defense can continue to win 1st and 2nd down. We start to see a more dynamic, more stuff, more junk, more different looks, because I think he's got them. It's just a matter of, can they earn them as a defensive unit?
Yeah. I mean, that's the key, to be able to get picks too. Win 1st, 2nd down. Let's get in some 3rd and longs. Let's send the D-line, D-line's been coming, right? Yeah. Be able to get those guys rolling. And that's when our secondary is allowed to be getting these pick sixes, man. So that's what we got to do. And that's the key to the recipe to get some wins. Turnover.
Hey, Chris, thanks for joining us, man. I love when the defensive ends can pin their ears back and go get the quarterback. We love when you can pin your ears back and come tell us about this defense. We're going to have you back, man. Thanks for joining us on the Booth Review.
Oh, yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Welcome back into Booth Review, and shout out to our main man, Chris Harris, for coming through and talking some ball. B-Mac, that was great. Great insight from Chris Harris there.
Yeah, I wanted him on the show because he's been down a couple times and we've had some sideline conversations, and he just sees it differently. He sees it from that defensive back perspective. He sees it from, tediously studying film as an NFL player. That part is that's the part you don't see. You see the athletic accomplishment, you see the tackles, the pick sixes, and all the great things he did. But what made those DBs great, guys like Akeem and Chris, study habits. They were just football nerds that stayed in that film room, learned everything about the positions, the formations, to put themselves just that 1% upper hand, the true chess game of football. That guy plays it as well as anybody, and he can talk it as well as anybody as well.
Before we get into more KU football, I do want to give a shout out to Home Field Apparel. They are one of our sponsors here on the Booth Review, and they have some excellent apparel that you can get at homefieldapparel.com. They actually just dropped a KU bomber jacket, B-Mac. I don't know if you saw that. You're into bomber jacket types. But they've got T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies. They've even got some wonderful, wonderful sweatpants that I have that are just so comfortable. And so if you want more apparel from KU, they also got over 100 different schools over there on homefieldapparel.com. Be sure to check them out at homefieldapparel.com. All right, B-Mac, KU gets a big win on the road against Iowa State. Kansas State's on the horizon. And you got this kind of game sandwich in between here with Texas Tech, a team that has certainly underperformed, I think, compared to what people thought they were going to be. Well, what's kind of your thoughts on this game against Texas Tech with the K-State game coming up next?
Like a lot of games in the Big 12, I see a comparable team. I see a team that's capable. I see a team that has a ton of talent. I see a team that's been playing a young quarterback that's starting to improve. One of my things about Texas Tech in general was they want to throw the ball down the field really bad. And even if the people around them don't support that type of play. And I think that's what's led to them to having so much turnovers, is that they want to push the ball down the field. They want to throw longer routes, and that's good. And that's fun. The problem is you got to protect your quarterback longer, and you got to be able to defend blitzes longer. And you got to have a confident, comfortable quarterback up there. And with Taylor Shuck, they had a veteran quarterback that had been around, that had played in the system multiple years and was comfortable in it. But since his injury, they've had younger players try to get into a system that's hard for younger players to fit into. But I think they're doing a good job of adapting the system, and we're going to see the best version of Texas Tech on Saturday. They've got talent everywhere. I don't think that was ever in question. I think it's a matter of Kansas continuing to come out and execute and playing a comparable team, just like the team you saw at Ames. A very comparable team to Kansas, where execution is going to be the difference between winning and losing.
Yeah, when I look at Texas Tech, one of the things that kind of popped out to me is, so they're sitting at 4-5, B-Mac, and their last game of the season is against Texas. So feasibly, if they want to still try to make a bowl game, probably their best chance is to win these next 2 games before they go play Texas, which means I feel like this is going to be a desperate Texas Tech team coming in to play Kansas. So the Jayhawks are definitely going to have to be turned up. But BMAC, we know KU has been great at home so far this season. Tell me a little bit more about the booth. What do you think makes the booth special this season for KU and why they've been so successful more at home?
I think they've been locked in. I think the defense is just more locked in. We sit in those pressers and we ask every week, 22 points on the road, 22 points at home, 38 on the road. What's the difference? Blah, blah, blah. Well, if you look at the Iowa State game as a good example, as what has been primarily an outlier, they played a game very similar to how they played home. They tackled well, which is, to me, every time you're wondering about the Kansas defense, they tackled. And if they tackled, they probably were in a pretty good position. Like Chris mentioned, we don't do a lot on defense. They're cover 4 shell. They like some pressure here and there. They like to get pressure with 4, so they don't have to blitz a lot. I mean, you have bookends like Booker and Jeremy Robinson. You don't need to. And you've got all the defensive line depth inside. You can move DJ Withers inside. You can pop J.B. Brown outside. I mean, you just have unlimited options. So it's a matter of playing a very basic style. But in order to do that, you got to tackle. It's a bend but don't break defense for the most part. I will say Borland has become more than that. Obviously, they've been much more diverse this season in terms of, running some man on early downs. Man free was what they went to against Oklahoma that kind of shut down that late run game. So it's not as if they've only done one thing. But I think traditionally they want to be a bend but don't break. And in order to do that, you have to tackle. And when they tackle, they play well. I thought the guy that was a big difference in Ames was Craig Young. Craig Young was incredible. He made tackles in open field when he had to that were awesome. He was in coverage, locked up. He saved a touchdown on a red zone opportunity. He was able to knock the ball away, triggered on a slot blitz and got a sack. I just really like the way that Craig played and is a good example of just the different guys that showed up in Ames and made huge difference.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Craig Young because Brian Borland actually talked about how for the Iowa State game, they kind of pared down some of what he was having to do, took some off his plate is what he said, which basically seemed to maybe free him up to do more, right? And he brought up the point of if you have a guy playing, 60, 70 snaps a game and he's getting tired, or you play 40 to 45 or 50 snaps, you might be more effective for those 40 snaps. So I kind of felt like Craig Young maybe with less on his plate was a little bit more successful in that game against Iowa State, which I thought was really impressive. And he kind of brought up the fact that Jason Gilliam coming along kind of helps free up Craig Young a little bit more.
Absolutely. And you talked about just having that, 60 plays versus 40 plays, but 20 plays of Jason Gilliam, that guy's like John McClane in Die Hard. He plays as hard as humanly possible. I just imagine him, coming off the field with a gash covering his whole chest, taped up, with a dirty tank top. He's got a lot of John McClane vibes. He just plays so hard. So if he's in the game, he's going to make something happen just by effort. We've seen him make tackles for loss from behind. He'll blitz and run down a screen. And it's amplifying 2 people instead of limiting 1. And that's kind of what Coach Borland was talking about in terms of getting a rotation at that position. And not just at that position. You're seeing it at other positions as well, where Cornell Wheeler and Rich Miller, 2 guys that bring different things to the table, but both very effective. Cornell's a short tackler. He's an impact tackler. He hits people hard. He can line up on the line of scrimmage. He can cover. He got the big interception at UT. So you're starting to see that the depth is not just depth. It's another type of player bringing another skill set that they can use and be multiple still by doing a lot less. So, we mentioned the guys outside, but how about a guy like Caleb Taylor, who was immovable on double teams, a guy that you couldn't even move. And if someone would have told you that Kansas was down there starting defensive tackles, you wouldn't have noticed because the guys that stepped up and played, Devin Phillips has been awesome this year. He's been awesome. Caleb Taylor just was like, I'll just be Devin Phillips today. He'll get a sack, push the pile, make it hard to run the football inside. I've been so impressed by their depth and not just, everybody says the next man's up, right? I mean, you hear that, you can go to a press conference in 100 and, whatever many schools there are in major college football, and they'd all say the next man up. But these guys come in and they're hungry. They make plays. They're productive. Patrick Joyner Jr.'s of the world, Hayden Hatchers, when he gets his opportunities, looked healthy again. Down at Ames, I think that'll make a difference. So this defense is rounding into shape for sure.
Yeah, B-Mac, I'm curious for your perspective on this. Iowa State runs that 3-3 kind of front, and Texas Tech does some of the similar stuff as well. I'm just curious from a running back perspective, does that kind of change maybe how you read when you're on a run if it's against that kind of 3-3 front, or how does that affect, you think, maybe KU's running game? They weren't maybe as successful against Iowa State, but does that change, you think, as from a running back perspective when you're taking the ball and you're looking to see where the holes are? How do you approach that?
So I think for me, especially on the zone runs, when you get into a man running opportunity, and a man concept is when they're pulling those guards and tight ends, and you'll see Devin Neal follow them around and have to be patient. There's not a whole lot you can do. Sometimes there's a back door you can escape out of. Otherwise, you've got to get to the front side and make a play, regardless of the snap. But an inside zone is where you really have the chance to manipulate defenders. What I'll say about Iowa State is nobody plays defense like that. Freeler, number 17, was playing linebacker from safety depth, and that was the difference in the game. He was able to play linebacker from 12 yards away. Sometimes he could walk up and play linebacker anyway. He was excellent. I thought Iowa State was the best defense we played all year, and I thought he's the second best individual player I've seen outside of Colin Oliver. And I think when you look at it, if you're manipulating gaps as a runner, you cannot manipulate players that aren't in the gap count. I know that sounds very confusing, but Freeler is playing so far away that there's no way he has a gap responsibility. He can't. So if I'm an inside offensive lineman, like a guard, like a Reed Adams, I'm not looking at him because he's playing from 12 yards, and we have different ways to deal with him. So if he comes up in the box, we're not going to count him. So you got to deal with that guy anyway, right? You always got to make one guy miss. That's usually the one guy you have to make miss, except that guy was able to get from 12 yards to 3 yards instantly. So if you made it miss, and which was hard to do, and he made the tackle, it was a 3-yard gain, and that's what was really incredible about him. And he was a big difference maker. What I like about Texas Tech's 3-3-5 is I think they're more talented in the front three than Iowa State was. I think they're more athletic at those three spots. I'll be interested to see what kind of ways that they deploy that 3-3-5. But what the things that I thought made Oklahoma State unique was how big they played at those 5 techniques, which is those defensive ends that were defensive tackle sized guys, and it really made our off tackle running game hard. And then Colin Oliver was hitting like a brick every time he got near him. He made it really hard for us to get into those outside gaps. And then Iowa State, they're just unique. They're fast. They show up and make run fits really quickly. And showing up and making run fits really quickly is what sealed the game. You saw Freeler step 2 steps up, and Lawrence Arnold sneak behind him, and that was a touchdown that really broke Iowa State's back. So that's that line that Iowa State has to play on. Can we play run players? Can we play run responsibilities from past depths and responsibilities? And he was able to do it, which is impressive. The guy's only a true sophomore, so big future for that guy. I'll be interested to see how Texas Tech goes, because they are a little bit different structurally. But you can manipulate an inside zone. It's hard on outside zone. It's hard on man game.
That's interesting. And, I thought you brought up a great point about Iowa State being maybe the toughest defense KU's faced. Well, you and Chris Harris kind of talked about it, but Jason Bead, man, didn't turn the ball over, was outstanding in the game against Iowa State on the road. I guess it almost feels like you're running out of superlatives to describe how far he's come over the course of this season starting. But just speak on that a little bit more. What did you see from him, and what do you think made him so successful against Iowa State?
I think it would be like at the beginning of the year, I would tell anyone that'll listen that Jalen Daniels is one of my favorite Jayhawks I've ever seen play. And that still stands. Jason Bean is one of my favorite players I've ever covered. Now, I'm obviously much younger in my coverage career, but he's so much fun to cover because he'll make you wrong by the things he does on a football field. So you could I could have made a statement about him 2 weeks ago that was accurate when I said it. And it just doesn't apply anymore. One of the things specifically that we've talked about on this show was there's a difference between a Jalen Daniels game plan and a Jason Bean game plan. That's not true anymore. And I think it's a product of just his growth as a passer. What I've loved about him, and that Iowa State game is a great example. I'm glad you brought that up. They took the runaway. They made it very hard for us to run the football. So basically, Jason had to go win the game. And he had to go win the game throwing 3rd and 6+ a lot because they were successful on 1st and 2nd down. He did it. He threw on the run. He gave his big receivers a chance when there was nowhere to go with the football. His timing, I thought my favorite play was they ran an RPO to, the run pass option to where Luke Grimm ran a flat route, and Luke Grimm slipped. So right when he was about to trigger the football, Luke Grimm slips. He doesn't panic. He escapes to his right, and throws the ball to Quentin Skinner, who hadn't even come out of his break yet. And he catches the football. It's 1st and goal. Later on in the game, Doug Emelian on a corner route, he throws the ball when Doug's at the top of the route. He had not got his eyes back. He had not completed the route. Jason was not throwing with that type of anticipation 2 years ago, last year, maybe in his whole life. And what's interesting is that this coaching staff will tell you who had a great camp. What's the first name they say? Jason Bean. Who's improved? Who had a great week of practice this week? Jason Bean. Well, and it starts to feel like hyperbole. It starts to feel like maybe they're just trying to boost his confidence, right? No, he's literally getting better every week with in-game adjustments. He went out and won a football game for his team that really needed him to do so. He got help from his receivers. Lawrence Arnold, we're going to start calling him Big 12 LJ or something. Because I feel like every time Big 12 play starts, he's one player before that and a whole different player after that in terms of clutch plays, big hands catch. How about that early 4th down he nabbed that he basically caught the back half of the ball that kept that initial drive going that resulted in a touchdown. And we already know about the previous 4th down from the OU game. So he's just a clutch player. And when you need something done, he can get it done for you.
Yeah, I think what's most impressive about the wide receiver core, which you touched on Lawrence Arnold, is that none of those guys are really the number one guy, right? None of them are getting a ton of targets or a ton of plays, but every single one of them, when their number is called, they answer the bell, right? I mean, Lawrence Arnold's been fantastic. Quentin Skinner had a SportsCenter top 10 play.
Yeah.
And Luke Grimm obviously has been outstanding, and I think it's a testament to that group together, that group's togetherness, right? That it doesn't matter which guy's doing what. They all know that their number is going to get called and they're going to make a play. So I just thought that was so impressive from the wide receiver group.
Yeah, and they're just a group that fits the culture of the team. You go out and you play early in the season, everybody's like, what's wrong with the receivers? Nothing was wrong with the receivers. We were running the ball for 400 yards a game. We didn't need to pass. So then we get into conference play and we play UCF. And we have basically a whole game where we don't even throw the ball. I think we threw the ball 11 times. And then in the post game, it's like, we told these guys before the game that, this was going to be a game where they might not touch the ball a lot. Those guys blocked as hard as humanly possible. They really did. They went out and got the job done. And you switch over to games where that run game is getting clogged up a little bit, or it's successful, but it's a real grind. I can throw a quick out to Quentin Skinner. He can make it a 20-yard game. I can throw an RPO to Tanaka Scott. He can take it 21 yards. There were 3 plays on that opening drive, passes that went for 20 yards plus, all receptions to receivers. So I just think that this team, there's nothing you could say. You could not come into a game and say, if we take this away, we'll beat Kansas. Because they're so multiple. They have so many guys that are willing to step up and make plays when need be, whether it be the tight end position. They weren't super active in that game, but Jared Casey makes that huge 3rd down catch that seals the game. So it doesn't have to be every play for these guys. It can be 2 or 3 plays in a series that can make the difference in the game. They'll make the plays. I love this receiving core because it's just nothing you're used to with receivers. There's no divas. There's nobody in the media asking for the ball. There's nobody wanting more targets. There's no, we used to call these WTFs. You look out from the field and see a bunch of WTFs, right? You just see guys running back to the huddle. I just love their personality, and they really fit with the style of play of this team.
All right, B-Mac, you obviously, you played, you were in the locker room. Take me in there right now. You've got this game against Texas Tech, a team that has been kind of underwhelming, and you've got maybe the biggest Sunflower showdown ever coming up, right? What do you think is the mentality in that locker room heading into this game against Texas Tech at home?
So in the past, I would say this could be a trap game. And in most scenarios, you would say this could be a trap game, given that Kansas's record ranking relative to Texas Tech. I don't think this team is built that way. I think that this resurgence has been so rapid and such a direct ascension that I don't know how much time they've even had to reflect. They've been very good about compartmentalizing performances and moving on to the next one. They've done it when they failed. They've done it when they've been successful. And I think that is the difference between this team and every Kansas team since 2009. I mean, this is the difference between this Kansas team and everyone before it since 2009, is that they have not been able to take one game and one moment and allow it to just be one game and one moment. This team has been special at that. Think about this. They go into the Texas game thinking, we're going to beat Texas. I think they thought they were going to beat Texas. I think as a group, they thought that was a win for them. They lose their quarterback just before the game. And I think there is like a depleted feeling that kind of reverberates through the team. They end up getting their back broken, by, just being able to execute on offense, not getting the reps that he's used to, and all these different things. They had every reason to come down and be down and out, and they didn't. They answered the bell. They came back and won and played winning football. Oklahoma State was a game that I know our fan base is slapping their knees 2-3 times a week about what could have been. I don't think this team is. And that was a heartbreaking loss. That was a loss that they had multiple controversial calls that contributed to it, multiple missed opportunities that contributed to it. That's a game that I know they felt like they should have won. They moved on. They go out and they beat OU. They don't play great. I would say they played better against Iowa State than they did against OU. And that's a testament to what they are as a team at this point. I think when you have rapid growth like this, because even my career was longer. We had that Tangerine Bowl, we're straight up. Next year, 04, we're back down. 05, we're back up. 06, we're stable. And then 07, we go up. This team was down and then up. And then they've been ascending since then. So I think they just have a better understanding of, let's prepare for this one game. Let's get 1% better. I went to practice this week. These guys were light. They were ready to execute. They do not look like a team that's taking themselves too seriously. And I think that's important during this time of year.
All right, Texas Tech is rolling into town on Saturday, 11 a.m. kick. Should be a great atmosphere. It's going to be a beautiful day. I don't know if you've seen the weather, B-Mac.
Yeah.
It's going to be in the 60s in mid-November. We should be thanking our lucky stars about that one. So walk me through what's going to happen in this game. Give me your predictions for this game against Texas Tech.
I will never not look at a weather report again after what happened in the OU game. I mean, you want to talk about diaper butt. That was me. I was completely soaked. So I will always pay attention. I'm loving the sunny weather. I can't wait to get out there. So I would look at Texas Tech in two ways. One is that they're a very talented team, which we all know. They'll be very comparable to us in talent. On offense, the guy I'm looking at is Brooks. He's a good running back. He's built the same way of kind of the running backs that have given us trouble. OU's running back Walker was built the same way, a 5'8", 5'10", up to 220 pounds thick in the lower body. Those guys have been a little bit harder for us to tackle, and they run their offense through him because they have a young quarterback. So they got to be ready to show up, tackle, wrap him up, and make those plays. The booth has got to be going crazy because we got a young quarterback on the road, and we need to get into him from not just our pass rush, not just our team defense, but our crowd and our atmosphere. This team is 8-2 at home in their last 10 and undefeated this year. I expect it to stay that way, and I think they'll be able to execute well enough to win this football game. I have it 31-24.
Yeah, I definitely think this game, I think some people were surprised by the Vegas line, as some people maybe thought it was going to be bigger heading into this game. But you look at Texas Tech and some of the metrics, and the metrics really, really like Texas Tech, and they've underperformed in their record. But I think you can't look at their record and say, oh, this is not a good team, because I think you're absolutely right, B-Mac. They've definitely got a lot of talent. Taj Brooks is top 6 in the nation, over 1,000 yards rushing on the season, as you alluded to. And the defense is maybe not in great, but they're consistent. They've been pretty solid. They're in the middle of the road in the Big 12 in most of the stats. So I think this is a game that you certainly can't take lightly for Kansas. And to your point, I don't think they are. They seem very locked in on this one. I'm going to take Kansas as well. I think I'll say 34-24. I think you pretty much hit it square on, B-Mac. I think it's going to be a pretty close game early, but I think K's going to maybe pull away a little bit late. Any final thoughts, B-Mac, before we get out of here?
Man, I don't have any final thoughts, man. I just love the opportunity to talk about the Jayhawks again. Love that our show is called The Booth Review. I'm hoping that you guys get out there, get to the booth, pack that thing. Let's get them going. Let's give these guys an opportunity to meet every goal they've ever had, because that's, we live and die this stuff. We dream like they dream. Imagine your dream of waking up one day and going to a New Year's Six bowl game to watch your favorite team. Imagine what these guys are feeling with the opportunity right in front of them in 3 games to play. Come out and support them and make those dreams a reality, not just for you, but for them as well.
You heard the man, pack the booth. Also, shout out to our guest, Chris Harris, earlier in the show. He was fantastic. For Brandon McAnderson, I'm Nick Springer. Thanks for listening. This has been Booth Review on the Kansas City Sports